Hello, everyone. Today is an important historic date for people both in Ukraine and in Russia. It is the 85th anniversary of what in their combined history this is known as the start of the Great Patriotic War. So June 22nd, 1941, sometime after the start of World War II, was when German troops formally broke the truce with the Soviet Union and crossed the Soviet border, bombed Soviet cities, and so on and so forth. And one of the countries, back then, Soviet republics, to take the brunt of it was Ukraine. The other one was Belarus. So things kind of look very different now when we look back at that time. A lot of the history was rewritten during the Soviet times, but it's still absolutely true that people of Ukraine had sacrificed a lot during that period of time. So, meanwhile, right now, the war that Russians brought to Ukraine 4.5 years ago is now turning against them. And there is another factor entering this particular equation. They too, just like we do here in the United States, they have an election coming up. So, the parliamentary elections in Russia are taking place on September 20th. So pretty soon, if you think from the standpoint of logistics. And in the past, we already know this, Russian elections were basically a formality. Everybody knew Putin was going to win. Everybody knew that his party was going to win. But now, people, for some reason, are not quite so sure. I mean, considering the manipulation is part of the system, I don't know why they're not sure, but there are doubts because now that the war has been brought onto the Russian soil, the support for it is beginning to wane. There have been dozens of attacks carried out by Ukrainian military that took place in Russia, but it still felt far away because it was some distant military base here, some oil terminal there. What I think really brought it front and center was one, the drone strikes carried out against St. Petersburg during Putin's economic forum, and two, the now famous strikes against Moscow. And so the sentiment I see repeated on social media among Russia's influencers, bloggers, political analysts, everybody, is this wasn't supposed to happen. Y'all were supposed to finish invading Ukraine in like a week, have your victory parade in Kyiv, and then, Ukraine would just surrender and everything would be fine and dandy. Here we are 4.5 years later, politically isolated, economically isolated, everybody hates us, and now we are being bombed all to shit. What's going on? And so, at the same time, they have nothing to show for it. They're stuck. They are losing more people per month than they're recruiting. The war is sucking the economy dry, and they're not making any progress. In fact, they're losing territory. And now there is a very real possibility that they're gonna lose access to Crimea. It's not impossible. It's not just words. Right now, they are basically unable to go to Crimea, unable to take anything to Crimea by way of supplies, fuel, and so on, and they can't leave. Those who are already there can't leave. And that particular noose is tightening. And this is when, again, I encourage everybody to look at the map of Crimea and see for yourself. There's only so many ways to get there. And it is very easy to keep those basically under observation and under fire. Now, Russia continues digging its own hole, basically, digging its own grave. First of all, this goes back to the conversation we've had some months ago. So, remember when I told you that basically Russia had threatened any and all ships going in and out of Ukraine as Ukraine strove to maintain its grain export obligations, not wanting to destabilize the global markets and cause potentially the risk of global hunger. So, at the time, Russia said that it didn't matter that it's grain and not weapons. It didn't matter that these were unarmed, peaceful cargo vessels. They said that they will treat anything going in and out of Ukraine as a military target. Well, here's another example. Basically, they struck a foreign cargo ship in the Black Sea and killed an Egyptian sailor. So, this is not even a Ukrainian national. This is a person from another country who was on an unarmed vessel and got killed by Russia. And I'm sure that is not helping Russia's case anywhere. In addition, Russia is building up troops once again in the Donetsk-Luhansk region. Once again, they're trying to take the rest of Donbass, and it keeps not working. In this case, we're talking about the town of Konstantinovka. And again, this is like other towns in the area, like Slavyansk, like Kramatorsk. You've heard those names on the news plenty of times in the past. Russians have been trying to take those for years now. For years, and they just can't seem to make it. And since this is now a known fact, again, Ukrainians are not idiots. They've seen this before, and they know how to deal with this. So, I do not expect any great successes. Meanwhile, Ukraine strikes a key Russian military parts factory in the city of Voronezh. So this is the Voronezh semiconductor plant. You see it right there in the photograph. Why this one? This is an electronics factory that produces parts for advanced Russian missile systems. I hope I don't need to explain to anyone why this is an important military object. We go back to the principle of the best missile, the best drone, the best airplane is the one that never gets made, never gets launched to begin with. And that is exactly what Ukrainians are trying to achieve. They put this plant out of commission. Guess what? That's a lot of missiles that never get launched against Ukrainian civilians. More to come.